Next up, we have Ray Bellis from Internet Systems Consortium, who will be talking about FRoot at ISC. Ray Bellis is the director of DNS operations at ISC, responsible for the network of Anycast DNS root servers, that is FRoot. Ray has also served as co-chair of HomeNet and GeoPriv working groups at ITF, and has been on the program committee of UKNOF and DNS-ORG, chairing the latter. Ray, over to you.
Thank you, Swapnil. Is my audio okay?
Yes, all good. Presentation is
lovely. Thank you, and thank you very much for the introduction. So first, I'll just say a little bit about ISC. Many of you may use our software, even if you don't actually know who ISC are. We're the people who are mostly known for writing the bind DNS server software, which is still at this point sort of the dominant authoritative server most widely used on the planet. We're also known for ISC DHCPD, which is the reference implementation of the DHCP protocol, and we have a new product called Kia, which is a newer DHCP server for IPv6. We're a non-profit. All of our operations are funded by selling support contracts for those three products. And we also run one of the 12 or 13 root letters, which are run by 12 separate operators across the world. We were down in Silicon Valley, in Redwood City, California, but we've just this year become a virtual company, but that's not actually because of COVID-19. It's because basically as a non-profit, the benefactor who owned our building could no longer justify having a nice expensive building in Silicon Valley used by people who weren't actually paying for it. So anyway, a little bit about the root system. So there are 12 separate operators of the 13 letters. This is A through M.rootservers.net. Other operators include VeriSign, Cogent, NetNod, RIPE. There's also Wide. There's a couple of US DoD operators as well. At the moment, there are actually, as of today, just under 1,100 instances. The figure on the slide is a couple of days out of date. And these are anycasted across the world. So each of the 13 operators has a specific IPv4 and IPv6 prefix, but we announce it from many different places, many different co-location centers. But most of those are in major cities. For FRoot's share of the root system, we're currently operating in 252 instances, of which about 60 are ones that we directly operate ourselves, where we have over 3,000 peering sessions with lots of other networks. Most of those are bilateral peering sessions, but we do also peer with route servers for multilateral peering as well. And the remainders are ones that are operated by Cloudflare in partnership with us. The IP addresses you see there, 192.5.5.241 is our IPv4. And there's a /24 prefix for announcing that, and 2001 502FF is a /48 announcement from our Anycast. So within India, the situation with the root, as we heard earlier, I would say, of course, India is a very large country with a huge population. You've got 17.7% of the global population, according to the figures I found. But of those nearly 1,100 instances of the root system, there are only 22 in India, of which we run 8. One of those is in INNOG3, and 7 of those are hosted by Cloudflare. But generally, if you're working with Cloudflare, you'll get the prefixes if you're bilaterally peering with them, but not if you're only peering over the peering exchange, over the route servers, because they're not currently announcing the FRoot prefixes over their root server connections. So ultimately, for us, it's an underserved market, and we want to add more nodes to improve the service. Just to give an idea of where those nodes currently are, here's our Google Earth view of where the various nodes are. This is just the ISC operated ones, ISC and Cloudflare. So you see New Delhi, Calcutta, Nagpur, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Chennai, where we have 2. So why do we actually want more nodes? Well, basically, the bigger the Anycast system is, the more resilient the root system is against DDoS attacks. Generally, having a node nearby limits the exposure of the root system as a whole to DDoS, because the traffic will tend to hit the nodes that are closest to the origin of the attacker, leaving the rest of the system unaffected. There has never yet been a global outage of the global full root system. On occasion, attackers have had the ability to cause a little bit of degradation of service to individual operators. The system as a whole is incredibly reliable as a result of this huge Anycast cluster. And of course, having systems on your local network or on your local exchanges improves the latency to the root system. You might argue that most of the domains looked up on the root system are actually just the top level domains, but in fact, that's not the case. Easily 95% of the traffic that hits the root system is traffic that isn't cache misses for the top level domains, even though ostensibly that's all we're serving. It's things like the captive portal packets that are being sent, or detection packets that are being sent by things like Chromium browsers. Whenever Chromium starts, it does a DNS lookup, trying to figure out whether it's on a captive portal or not, and it sends a random junk query to the root system. And all those systems will be hitting your recursive servers, causing cache misses, and then going out to the root system. So having the root system nearby will improve performance for everybody. And ultimately, if you're a small network, if you're not able to peer with the bigger guys like Cloudflare with the bilateral peering, we particularly want to help out those smaller nodes, smaller networks, and not least because having a root server or two on your local exchange is a good tangible benefit for that exchange. It will help you actually attract new businesses to join the exchange. Excuse me. So if you are interested in hosting an FRoot node, this is how you can help. We don't pay for the hardware these days. So what you need to do is to sign up to our Memorandum of Understanding, which describes the framework of the agreement between us and the host. Supply a single 1U Dell server, the specifications that I can supply on request. We need an IX peering port. Ideally, we always peer directly on IXs and then manage our own peering with the peers on that IX. We need a management transit port for actually managing the system, and an out-of-band management port as well. And we need just 1U of co-location with power and cooling. And we then do everything else and, and handle all the BGP announcements, handle all the peering, and make the node available. So there is a lot more information about that available on our website, including the text of the MOU, more details about the requirements for the networking in terms of IP allocations. For example, we typically need a 29 or 28 of IPv4 space for the transit connection, a 48 of IPv6 space, and there is also an application form. And thank you. That's the slides done.
Thank you, Ray, for the presentation. Good to know about the current state of the FRoot DNS root servers within India. So we have a few questions to begin with. We are well within time, so I think I can direct those questions at you. Mr. Brajesh has a question. Does it make sense for an ISP at its node to host a root server instance?
In general, we try to avoid that. I mean, if you're a very, very big ISP, then yes, but it would have to be done on the basis that we would still want to run BGP to talk to that node itself. It's not appropriate for the Anycast addresses to be managed by or operated by a third party. So we would have to run the BGP, which is done actually just from software routing processes on the box itself. We use the bird routing daemon for that. But ideally, the point of the root servers is to get the reach outside of networks and get them out to IXs is our preferred position. I mean, for those people who want to run a local copy of the root zone, then they should probably refer to your own presentation, Swapnil, from UK NOF a couple of weeks ago, and follow the guidance in RSC 8806, which talks about how you can run a local root mirror or a copy of the root zone without it actually being a real root server. I mean, a real root server is defined by being one that has the IP addresses that appear in the root hints file. So yeah, in our case, 192.5.5.241 and so on. But it's always possible to run a local copy of the root zone without actually being a formal root server.
Yes, exactly. And plus it also, makes sure that junk queries to the actual root, the upstream root, do not go through, so that you're reducing.
Indeed, yes.
unwanted.
You fed him that question, didn't you?
In fact, this was a question that came in primarily from the audience. Anurag has a question. So do you keep your routes local, that is within India, for Indian nodes by using no export or some other similar BGP community provided by your transit? Or just let BGP take care of things? How is Anycast experience in such model?
So we personally do use no export. So yes, when we peer with somebody, we expect them to only advertise the route to their own downstream customers and not to any other transit, or not to any other peers themselves. Cloudflare actually don't use no export, but they have some incredibly clever technology that I don't understand that allows them to constrain the way that routes are exported and actually keep it very, very well concentrated in country.
Right, great. So I have...
sorry, I should want to follow up on that one. If you're operating a route server, it is very important that your route server is configured to either pass through the no export community, or at least tell us which community we can use so that the route server will generate a no export community. It's quite common for the default that when we send no export to a route server, the route server says, fine, I won't export this route, which of course is no use to anybody.
Right. Thank you. I have a question of my own. I don't want to put you on in a spot, but can you give a rough estimate of traffic to the F-route instances within India, if you can?
Oh, give me 1 second. I mean, they do vary somewhat. I can't tell you off the top of my head for the Cloudflare ones. I would need to access their portal, but I can look very quickly for our own. It's not huge amounts at the moment, but so that's only because the node we have in Chennai. So give me 1 second. Unless Elmar beats me to it. You'll know one of my colleagues is listening to the presentation.
Okay, no worries.
So I'm just loading up my MRTG graphs. I should have had the figure to hand. It's lots and lots of MRTG graphs to load. So it's currently about 40 megabits.
Okay, that is something to look forward to with regards to
sorry, no, I've misstated that. Oh, sorry, it's more like 60 megabits.
Okay, so that is a criteria when operators are looking at sponsoring the F-route instance for that matter.
Yeah, the transit and peering costs are not great. The hardware cost in the US is about $3,000. I don't know how competitive Dell are in India, but the spec is fairly modest.
Right. Okay, I think we have done with the questions. So thank you so much, Ray, for the presentation.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.